is like Teflon. You can't get rid of this guy.
Sure.
This won't be his last fight.
He is not what you think he is. He's a riddle wrapped up in a rhyme.
Derek's tough as all boots. Derek's game is in it. He's one of the bravest fights I've ever seen in British boxing, especially in the heavyweights. But someone like Dubois teeing off on him, I wouldn't like to see.
One of the most idiotic things is to put your son in such an environment to say, right, son, it's too relaxed, you to take your mind off this. No, it isn't. You want to be in war mode. I think, personally, his dad's an idiot. You are disrespecting all the hard work Don Charles has done with this man for the last 3 months. I think Anthony Joshua has got nothing else to prove in this game, and he should rather walk away than hang about and wait for someone to turn him over.
Surely he has a automator, right? Who knows? Everyone knows the truth.
Maybe 5% out of 100 of those people are ones that dare tell him how it is. The rest of them, I think they'll tell him what he wants to hear.
Welcome to episode 140 of Talk Boxing. Spencer Oliver is away in Nigeria with the Talksport team, but I'm joined by Paul Smith and the former Cruiserweight champion of the world, Johnny Nelson. I haven't seen you for a while. Where you been on? Hanging around Turkey Al Sheikh trying to get a gig?
We all do, don't we?
Nice to see you.
Point.
Let's kick off with the re-emergence of Derek Chisora and his imminent future. Before we have a chat about it, listen to Derek himself last week on the show.
Yo, let me tell you something. Are you ready? Let me tell you something. You not ready? We are going back to Manchester, 13th of December, road to 50, shut down. Do you understand? So book your hotels, book your restaurants. Me and Queensberry, we are coming to shut it down in Manchester, 13th of December. Opponent will be announced soon. I had one, but the big boss took him, so you can't really argue when the big boss said what he wants. So it happened. So, but road to 50 in Manchester, shut down. Last Dance 2 happening in Manchester. Whoa.
Yes, I mean, book your restaurants, but don't invite Derek Chisora as a guest because he'll never pay his bill, right? There's a lot going on in the heavyweight division, but let's start with Derek. I mean, what do we think about Derek and his 50th fight and the direction of travel? We've got various names being thrown about and we'll ruminate on them. But landing on a bill with Moses Atoma headlining, what do you think of that for Derek, either one of you?
I think he's entitled to this 50th fight. I think I personally wanted to see him retire a few fights ago, but he's obviously proven that he's still got a bit left to offer. And
yeah,
that's the thing with heavyweight boxing. Obviously, it's a brutal game, and you can always risk overstaying your welcome. The fact that I think he's on with Matoma probably speaks volumes about where young Moses is in his career, and it's no disrespect to him whatsoever, but he's not quite the name that will be selling the stadiums out just yet.
Do you think that's part of it?
Yeah,
that's part of the thinking.
Without a doubt, I think it's to prop up the popularity and the notoriety,
the emergence
of Moses. So people get familiar with him. Derek sells tickets. He'll do or say something that'll get the public's imagination. I don't think it's in Derek's head his last fight. So even though he said it's the road to 50, he's no intention of finishing at this one. We thought that was in his 49th fight.
If he were to lose, though, If he were to lose,
yeah, but in Derek's head, common sense would tell you if he were to lose.
Yeah.
But in Derek's head, I don't think that's the case. I don't think they'll get him somebody that's, even if they put him in with a real headhunter, I don't think Derek wants to go out like that. I think he wants to go out on something high, but this won't be his last fight, especially if he doesn't lose.
Where are you on the Derek Chisora phenomenon? I remember Derek many years ago, Johnny, training over in Marbella, and I think it was preparing for the Vitaly Klitschko fight, or was with David Hay. I can't remember. It was around about that sort of time where Derek's popularity wasn't our Derek. He wasn't Del Boy. He wasn't the sort of personality that now sort of provides him as a national treasure. He's gone from what he was to War Chisora to a national treasure to a teddy bear in people's eyes. Are you surprised? I mean, I've got to know him over the years. I think he's a fabulous character in lots of ways. He is not what you think he is. He's a riddle wrapped up in a rhyme at times, isn't he?
I like that. I think Derek is a chameleon, and he's tried to mould and move with the time, from being a promoter, from being a presenter on his own YouTube channel, all that kind of things there. But he's just he's keeping himself relevant,
yeah,
and he's done a good job with it as well. So now as a fighter, he's still going to earn a good buck, and he's thinking there's still an opportunity out there for me to earn some money. And that's what he's doing. He's selling himself. He'll keep doing that for as long as...
Until someone doesn't want it anymore.
Yeah, that's the case.
Where are you boys on there's an indication that it's a Jagba that Moses Atoma is going to fight. Now, obviously, there was an expectation that Bakoli was going to roll through this fella, and he didn't. Right? So all of a sudden, this guy's currency's gone up a level. Where do we think, given what we've seen from Moses Atoma, and the question still abounds, and I don't know what you think, Johnny. I think myself and Paul have kicked it around about whether Moses Atoma can, the only thing we haven't seen is him take one on the whiskers. We've seen everything else. Right? And obviously, we expected a certain level of performance from Dillian Whyte. So I still think there's questions that we haven't had asked or answered more likely from Moses Atoma. But he can only do what he can keep on doing, which is keep on winning. Do we like this fight for Moses at this stage?
So why not? I personally don't see what would be wrong in putting Moses in with Chisora. He should beat Dillian Whyte. We saw what Dillian Whyte did to Chisora a while ago. And I don't know whether Chisora would want that for his final fight, though, as we've spoke.
Yeah.
I don't think he will want to be seen as being saved up to the young
absolutely not.
fighter on his 50th. And if he's looking for a farewell fight, then I think that type of opponent is ideal for him.
But in terms of Moses' fight against the Jagba, in terms of his development, I don't want to see Derek Chisora going in against Moses Atoma because there's a possibility that Moses Atoma will do to Derek.
I think we're getting excited about
Normally.
Moses, and so getting far too excited and putting him in thinking, right, what about this one? The boy's he's still a boy, still developing.
Sure.
And the job he did against Dillian was an amazing job. But remember the Dillian he went in with.
Indeed.
So all of a sudden everybody's getting excited, and he did a great job. But I think there still needs to step with caution. Now, Frank, regardless of what you say about Frank, he's very cautious.
He's an excellent matchmaker.
Smart. Yeah. He's a very good matchmaker. Yeah. Time has always been on his side. So they've got to be, he's as far as he's concerned, he'll make sure he'll pick somebody. They have
the time with Moses as well to build him up. They have the time to build him into something where he can sell the co-op out or he can sell the O2 out. At the moment, everyone in boxing has known about Atoma for years. We knew about him when he was 15, 16 years of age, knocking grown men out. Everyone knows about him in boxing, but it's that crossover thing which Derek has done over the last few years, hasn't he? He's managed
Is it a massive thing, do you think, Johnny, in the business of show? Because Moses Atoma is a young man. I think he's got a bit of personality, but it's not been shown just yet. What's been shown is his boxing credentials. Do you think he's going to have the chops to make that crossover that Tyson Fury made, whether it be good, bad or indifferent, and whether with Anthony Joshua, that cut through and turned him just from being an elite fighter into
a household name?
Correct.
No, I don't think that's his personality. I think more of the talking will be done by people around him rather than him. I think he's a well-mannered young man that can fight, that likes to fight.
Wants it, do you? I don't think he wants that line.
So he doesn't want it. He's not. That doesn't attract him. He just wants to get in there and beat people up.
Does he need it? Do you think he needs it? Because I don't think Tyson had a great personality, did he? Tyson just went in and blasted everybody out. When you got out of the ring, normally what you got was a mouthful of abuse.
Yeah. But and again, that captured people's thinking. You either loved him or loathed him. Yeah. But I think with Moses, he doesn't. It's show business. Yeah. And then if he wants to elevate to the levels of Anthony Joshua and people like that, or Tyson Fury and people like that, he's got to be willing to play the villain or play the hero. Yeah. He's not that kid.
No.
So I think that's where...
I don't think he's vanilla, though.
No, he's not. He's a very intelligent, level-headed young man. And so therefore, it's going to be down to the people around him to create the narrative.
Curate it, yeah, absolutely. Let's go back to Derek and talk about his potential opponent. Frank Warren was on TalkSport the other day giving us maybe a framework.
Who's he going to fight, Frank?
I don't know yet. It's something we've got to sort out. We've got quite a way to go yet before we officially announce that. So... but when we do. We've got some great cards coming up, but I just can't give you any information on that at the moment because we were looking at an opponent, but that opponent's no longer available. So we've got to fish around and hunt for a new one.
Would a man who's looking for a rebuild fight be available and be in your thoughts, and he'd be Daniel Dubois?
He's always in my thoughts, but at the moment he has an injury, so we'll see what happens.
We got Deontay Wilder floating around as well. Is he in the picture?
No, not on one of our shows. He isn't, not at the moment.
Derek Chisora, I mean, I get the impression and understanding that it's likely to be Daniel Dubois that he's going in against. Has that been beating around your neck of the woods? Have you heard that particular rumour?
No, the name that was getting passed around was Wilder.
Yeah.
But not Dubois, no.
Yeah, and I think Wilder would be the safer bet for Derek, because Wilder is shot.
I agree.
And be the safer bet for Derek. It's a big name.
Yeah,
it's a hero name. He can come out and say, I've done this to Wilder. At one point, he was one of the most feared heavyweights out there.
That could be a
But isn't it established though, boys? I mean, I know that we live in a world where sometimes the blind lead the deaf, right? But aren't we in a situation where everyone knows that Wilder's done? I mean, his last 2 or 3 fights, they've been, you know, it's a bit like the former artist that was Prince. It's the former boxer that was Deontay Wilder. I mean, I wouldn't want to get in a ring with him still at this stage, but
It
notwithstanding
still
that.
captures the imaginations of those that don't know.
And
to
you'd
be
be
able to-
surprised with the amount of people who don't really know what they're looking at when they're talking about him. And they'll see one good bit of
Footage,
glimpse of what he used to be, and oh, he hasn't lost it. It's clear as anyone. It's clear as the nose on your face.
But it's not going to be Wilder, is it? So if it is indeed the fishing expedition that I've thrown it out there for, and I think it's a bit more than the fishing expedition, it's Daniel Dubois. What do you think to that for either one of them?
I think Daniel would, on a good day, walk through him. But Derek doesn't give up.
But who's ever walked through Derek?
Yeah, well, I know. Because Daniel's strong, he's aggressive. But Derek is like Teflon. You can't get rid of this guy.
Sure.
And I think he's in a strong position to break Daniel's heart. That'd be an interesting fight because he's capable of breaking his heart.
There's a bit of devil's advocate to play there because he actually could break Dubois' heart, which I've made my feelings clear on what I think of it. It's there to be broken, but I think he would get the reactions of Chisora early when he starts landing in front of the target. And Derek's tough as all boots. His game is in it. He's one of the bravest fights I've ever seen in British boxing, especially in the heavyweights. But someone like Dubois teeing off on him, I wouldn't like to see.
What do you make of the change of... I mean, just pick up Dubois for a second before we finish with Derek. Have you had a reaction to Don Charles's departure from Daniel Dubois? Do you think it's hard yards on him?
You know what? I felt sorry for Don, and I actually spoke to him on a podcast, and he was still beating the drum for all the debacle before that, and then they dropped him. And I thought it was unfair, unjust, and it won't be until probably this time next year where Don will say, you know what they did was wrong. How they conducted the run up to the fight was completely wrong. The guy had not been paid. The guy was still holding on by his fingernails to his job. So give it time now. Now he's got to fall on his sword and say, well, actually, I said it because of this one. Yeah, I don't believe he believed there was any good in that setup for Daniel running into any coach worth his salt would never support that. But Don was supporting it because I thought, you haven't been paid yet and you're holding on to your job. Now, ask him the same question in a year's time, and I bet you he will proper throw the old man under the bus.
Talk to me about his father and what you view on his father is. I mean, obviously there was a lot of reaction, Johnny, to the situation leading up to the Usyk fight in terms of the immediate situation, the post-fight party, which was a party. It wasn't a gathering, it was a party. Don played the game and kept his counsel, and I told him when he came on the show beforehand because he was unhappy, don't throw yourself under the bus, John. I'm quite happy to take the content, but don't make a difficult situation for yourself, probably even worse. And then you've got the situation coming into the arena or to Wembley Stadium where you've got apparently the old man saying to Daniel, you know, these people don't come in, you're not fighting. And then just a general overall overriding aspect of how much Daniel looks to his father, his father's influence. No one should deny the influence of a father in their sons' lives and their sons' careers. But we've discussed it, myself and Paul, in great detail. We talked to Bomac last week about how a corner should be in terms of communication and who looks to who and when people speak. What's your takeaway about the whole phenomenon that sort of reverberates around Daniel and his father?
Well, I've got to be smart about how I use my words here because again, people are getting solicitors' letters. So it was one of the most idiotic things you can ever set up for any young man going into a fight, in such a big fight. One of the most idiotic things to get a guy to be around. If you're going into war, you're not going to surround yourself by cowards. You're going to surround yourself by people of the same mentality.
Absolutely.
One of the most idiotic things is to put your son in such an environment to say, right, son, it's too relaxed you to take your mind off this. No, it isn't. You want to be in war mode. You want to get out. You want to be able to get in that ring and think, this is what I'm going to do. I think personally, his dad's an idiot. I think it was one of those stupid things he could ever do. And I looked at Don. I thought you are disrespecting all the hard work Don Charles has done with this man for the last 3 months by putting him in that environment. Because if that's not right, it doesn't matter how physically strong and prepared you are for a fight.
Yeah,
so he knows his son. And he's thinking maybe that'll get the best out of his son.
That's the saying that wound me up the most, though. They said it worked for the fight before.
Yeah. So he got away with it the fight before.
Yeah.
But
with Anthony, because of they were citing it as, well, we did it once before, we can do it again, right?
Exactly. And I just think he's got to remember, boxing was around a long time before him. And you can play games in every sport, golf, football, tennis. You can't play games in boxing because you get turned over. And his dad made a calculated risk with his son. And I thought, in years to come, I don't know if he will look back and think, I got that wrong. I don't know if he's that kind of guy. But common sense will kick in. I thought it was one of the most stupid things he can ever do.
We were talking about Deontay Wilder being a potential fight for Derek Chisora. I don't think that's going to be the case. Let's listen to young Master Hearn talking about Mr. Wilder.
For anthonyjoshua, 2 milestone anniversaries. Firstly, Povetkin, and then, of course, Daniel Dubois a year on. I can't quite believe how quickly that's gone. What is the latest? Have you spoke to him in the past week or so?
Yeah, I spoke to him non-stop. I mean, look, he's back training. He's going into a few training camps just to get some experience and, you know, some time in the training camp before he enters his own. February is still the plan very much. You know, my preference is a fight in Africa. We've had a couple of approaches. I think that would be a historic moment for him. But that's the fight. Lock it in for February. We'll be doing that over the next couple of weeks. And then the big one, back end of the summer. You know, 2026 is going to be a massive year for AJ.
What about Dave Allen beats Makhmudov and then calls out AJ in the ring, and then that's the comeback fight for Joshua?
Maybe. I mean, look, you know, if Dave Allen beats Makhmudov, he's going to put himself in line for some huge fights. I like the Wilder fight, personally. We've reached out to Shelley Finkel to talk about that. But let's see what happens October 11th. Packed out Sheffield Arena. Massive night for Dave Allen. If he gets the job done, he's going to waltz into a massive fight.
I mean, I think it's fair to say you can't meet Dave Allen and not like him. And you can't like this regeneration of Dave Allen and the opportunities he's now creating for himself. I mean, obviously we saw some of the shine come off Makhmudov when Ajit Kabayel did a number on him about 18 months ago. Is this a good move for Dave to take this fight? He could have gone down the British title route, which he spoke about wanting to do, and he spoke about how meaningful that was to him because that's what he wanted to do for his father. Do you like this fight for Dave, both of you?
I'd have liked to have seen him gone down the British title route. I think it would have been a great achievement for him had he have won that. As you said, it's impossible not to like him when you see him. It's impossible not to like him when you listen to how he's been, how he's lived, his attitude, his outlook on life. But for me, he's got to be really careful. And I think anyone involved with Dave Allen's got to match him really carefully and do it in a smart way.
Like we said about Derek earlier on, I think I looked at Dave probably 3 years ago and thought, you should jack in. You're getting hit too often. It's great talking about it when you're doing a game. It's 5-10 years down the line, you think you should have walked out 3 or 4 fights before you did. I think Dave, again, if he's
he's a different mindset now, Johnny, isn't he? I mean, if you listen to him speak, and he hooks up with Jamie, and Jamie's always been of the mindset that if he trains properly, he can actually have a greater ceiling than he's ever allowed himself to have.
If it's about the money, I get it, but he wants to, and he lives modestly with his family. But I think
it's about the money, John, isn't it? It's about the money. But
you know what? Go down the British title route. Get that to say, I've done that. That's in the records. I don't want to be in a record book saying, Dave Allen, he was a tough fighter. Yeah. Be a former British champion, you know, because there's strong possibility that could come about. And that's how...
He's still being paid decently for them title fights as well, wouldn't he, against the likes of Frazer Clarke or Wardley or whoever, Adelaide, whoever's around the British title.
And Davis proved that if once he goes... And gets in with anybody that's just a bit beyond him, they'll get the better of him. But the young guns that are coming through.
What do you think of Makhmudov? I mean, once upon a time he was this, you know, he wasn't going to win any beauty competitions, was he? You know, in terms of scare the living people just by looking at him. But he got found out by Ajit Kabayel. Do you think that Dave has gotten a little bit drunk on the job that he did on Johnny Fisher in both fights, by the way? And his grasp is going to be exceeding his reach? Or is he catching someone that looks on paper like a good...
Depends on how much of that Makhmudov has got.
Right.
Because Dave will wear you down, he'll stick to you like glue, and he'll stay at one level, at one pace all the way through. And he's not got an up pace or a down pace. So if Mahmoud's heart is weak, Dave will do him through. But if his heart's strong and he still thinks he's got a little bit, you know, I think Dave comes off second place.
Do you?
Yeah.
If you're Shelley Finkel or Deontay Wilder, are you looking around? I know we've discussed the possibility of where this is going to land with Wilder. Would you be rather looking at Chisora or Dave Allen, or would you, in the back of your mind, still think there's an opportunity for Anthony Joshua to come out of the ether?
If I was Shelley Finkel, I would understand that Wilder still is a name he can sell.
Yeah.
So they've got to be smart about who do you put him in with and risk him losing to or beating. So now you want to make as much money out of this version of Wilder that's left.
Yeah.
So why go for somebody that's down there and you get paid X amount where you can get paid a ton load there. So I'd wait and be smart about who he picks to put him in with.
I think also if you look at Deontay Wilder, his ego has always outranked his ability, and he's had some unbelievable achievements. He's made a lot of money and every successful, but he won't be looking at the people like Dave Allen, with all due respect. It's Deontay Wilder. You know, he's going to be looking at Joshua or whoever's at the top, and he's going to want the best, and that's it.
Where are you on Anthony Joshua? I mean, and where he is at this stage in his career, Johnny? I mean, I've sort of said to myself, and I said it out loud for what my opinion's worth, I think that Anthony doesn't need to do anything. I was talking to Michael Jarman the other day about whether he fought the scarecrow, Jake Paul, and I said to him, it doesn't really matter if he can get paid 300 million quid. People are not going to remember that on Anthony Joshua's career. He'll remember it in his bank balance in 3 or 4 years' time, but no one will diminish him for fighting this fella just because there's an opportunity to do so. But I also think, as a mainstream fighter, I was one of the few voices in the room that said I didn't think Jermaine Franklin, I didn't think Robert Helenius, I didn't think Otto Wallin, and I didn't think Francis Ngannou proved the point that Anthony Joshua had regained his poise and was going to be able to come across it when a live one stuck it on him, which proved to be the case, whether it was bad tactics from whoever or whether it was just a perfect fight.
Simon, you were spot on. I think, first of all, I don't think Jake Paul was ever going to happen.
No, I hope it doesn't.
I don't think it was ever going to happen. Even when Jake Paul was shouting out and Eddie kind of like propped it up.
It shouldn't, by the way.
It was never ever going to happen. Number one. Number two, I think for Anthony Joshua, coming from a place of love, I think Anthony Joshua's got nothing else to prove in this game, and he should rather walk away than hang about and wait for someone to turn him over. It's either him and Tyson Fury, which we're all sick of. Is it happening or isn't happening? Or just walk out of it. He's a very comfortable, wealthy man.
That already happened though, didn't he? He did get turned over, and that's the thing. I felt 18 months earlier he would have walked right through Dubois, and he would have had too much for him. And he got in that fight.
Do you?
I do believe that.
18 months earlier?
And I think he got in that fight, maybe 2 years earlier, but he got in that fight, and for me it was one fighting on nerves.
What, pre the second loss to Usyk or post second loss
before
to Usyk?
Before
right.
Usyk.
Oh yeah, agreed.
Before Usyk, like
a lot of water's travelled under the bridge since then,
of course, but he got in that fight, and for me it looked like someone just fighting on ego. Like I'm Anthony Joshua, and he's had an unbelievable career.
He walked in the ring like Elvis.
He walked in the ring like as if it was already a foregone conclusion. You had someone young and hungry, but who was fighting on nerves, which is going to fight a lot harder early, and I felt like he did get turned over, and I think that's what.
I wouldn't want to see Anthony Joshua leave his career like that. You know, and that could possibly happen with whoever they put him in with now. Whoever they put him in with, that could happen. So for Anthony Joshua to say, I'm done, I'm all right, I'll take the flight, I get the stick, you know, and it hurts him when people say good or bad about him, it hurts him. Walk away from it. He's all right, he's good. And he's got a business empire that'll work healthily for him.
He's not going to run out of a quid or two. It's generational wealth that he's managed to create for himself and deserves. What about the people that he's got around him? I mean, I like Ben Davidson. I've had debates about how effective a coach he is without necessarily being in a position to be in that much credibility, and questioned the commentary that we all listened to that Shane McGuigan pulled apart about roll the dice. Where are you, Johnny, in the people that Anthony's got around him that help him, whoever they may be? Well,
I probably think maybe 5% out of 100 of those people are ones that dare tell him how it is and give him straight talk, give him truth talk. The rest of them, I think they'll tell him what he wants to hear because they want to keep themselves in a job.
Because they monetize themselves through it.
Yeah, they want to keep themselves in a job, and sometimes, you know, it's and agent will probably look at that and think, no, that's rubbish. In reality, really look at the people around you. Look at what's happened to your career. Look at where you are, and think, right, are you going to tell me what's best for me or what's best for us? And I think with Anthony Joshua, I think he's surrounded by a majority of the people that are surrounded him are just not telling him how it is.
But do you think
he's stopped learning? But
do you not think Anthony is now a much maturer man? He will have surely he has a bullshit. Right, everyone knows the truth. I've known the truth in my life and things when I've made mistakes. And you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you look in the mirror and you know truth, don't you? Right? Anthony Joshua will know the truth about himself. He'll know what his motivations are. He'll know
what his fears are. He'll know what his fears are.
He'll know what his fears are. Yeah. So won't he be able to assess those that are living vicariously through him, those that are really just blowing smoke up his because he represents another opportunity economically for another spin of the wheel? Do you think he can't see that, John?
You know what? He wants to be wary of the ones that are closest to him, because the ones that the people around him that are close enough to tell him advice that suits him are probably being pushed away indirectly from the ones that are closest to him. So those ones that are talking to him, you don't want that, you want this. People will try and manipulate situations, in my opinion, try and manipulate situations that suit themselves.
They're best at
not just not on this specific issue, but you get that in life. In boxing and sport, especially,
it's even worse.
You can get what you want or what you need, and what you need sometimes isn't what most of the time is not what you want. And when you're at that stage in your career, you need people around you who are going to tell you what you need to hear, and sometimes it will cause risk.
Is it a tendency of boxers, though, or the sport particularly, to have people that say things that effectively... Because ultimately, I would imagine this sport, more than any other sport, obviously my background was football, people need to be positively reinforced, positively encouraged, because if you tell people things that are negative, you take away their ability to overcome things. But isn't it part of the... I've spent in the last couple of years, and you've laughed at some of the things I've said, what I think is a version of the truth, and it comes up against people that get very thin skins very quickly. Isn't this a byproduct of the industry itself, where people only want to hear news and they only want to hear what they want to hear, and in life people don't want to hear the truth because it actually doesn't suit them very much?
Possibly. Listen, AJ will have a lot of family members around him working in 258, working in his management company, but ultimately he is the boss. Now, family members are usually the ones that will tell you straight and give it to you straight, because that's how it is. But as you said about some people having thick skins, so some people just think that they shouldn't be getting criticised, full stop. Some people will welcome criticism and will try and correct it and try and fix it. Every person's different, and I think that's where we all go wrong sometimes. There's 4 brothers in my house, and we're all totally different people. And what works for me wouldn't work for the next one, what works for the next one wouldn't work for him. But with AJ, I think he's got people around him and he values loyalty, and he's got a lot of loyal people that are there working for him and with him. I hope that the right people are telling him the right things at the right time. But
do you think he's surrounded by enough good voices?
It's all on him.
50-50.
50-50.
50-50. I do think that some of the decisions that are being made, in my opinion, some of them, it's great to be wise after the event.
Always.
So we don't know what happens behind closed doors. We don't know what AJ's like behind closed doors. We know the persona that he gives us up front. But from the outside looking in, it just looks like the people that should be there for his best interest, I think they just get eliminated one at a time. And there's probably very few around him that are there for AJ's best interest, not theirs.
I think I'm inclined to agree with you. This week we heard a little utterance from Oleksandr Usyk, replying to a video sent by Sideshow Bob, Jake Paul. Oleksandr Usyk says, "Soon I'll close the book on boxing, and after that I'll be waiting for you in a cage. Let's see if you've got the balls or just hunger for hype." When do you think that we will see Usyk close the book on boxing?
Good question. I don't know. Me personally, we were talking about this recently. I would have retired in the ring after that last fight. He's got nothing.
I thought he would, actually. I thought
he may have, but then, listen, I'm one of them fighters. If I made the amount of money he made in one fight alone, I probably would struggle to get out of bed again, because at the end of your career, it becomes a job. If he can go and make that lump of money again in another fight, why would he do it?
But who against?
Who?
I totally
agree.
He'll look at it and think, who am I going to make this kind of money against? So until someone comes along and you're going to offer me this kind of money, I'll just sit by the way.
Who is there? I mean, what's he fighting for? Is he waiting for an opportunity to potentially fight on home soil, so he comes back to the Ukraine and fights there in a nation that might have actually alighted upon peace and is in a different situation? Do you think that's part of his motivation?
There's no big enough characters that you would put in there realistically think they'd give him hellfire. I know they're talking about putting him with Moses.
Yeah.
And Moses is thinking that could probably happen within a year. From Usyk's point of view, he's thinking, am I going to wait around long enough for this kid to arrive? Or shall I just do it at my own pace? I don't think there's anybody that generates the kind of money that he wants, he needs, he deserves to actually for him to hang about. So it wouldn't surprise me if he had one more farewell fight at home. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
It'd be interesting to see, because I thought there was a point, and maybe it's because I'm an idealist and I wish for the best things, because I remember reading the newspaper article that Oleksandr Usyk did with the Mail, which was a brilliant article talking about the opportunity that Anthony Joshua afforded him and how that had catapulted him and created a landscape that Joshua didn't need to give it to him. We know Joshua took that fight because he thought it was the right time to take Usyk and thought we could win it. It wasn't a charitable situation, but he was so magnanimous in it about how his chance had been given by Anthony Joshua. He talked about everything that has got now has come from that particular tree, that fruit of that tree. And I thought that he might have extended the same courtesy to Joseph Parker, because Joseph Parker's been sitting around with an opportunity. He was unfortunate to have lost the fight against Daniel Dubois because Daniel wasn't well. He's now, as a result of Daniel losing that particular fight, has gone back into a holding pattern. The WBO belt, Alexander's, playing hide and seek with his injury and seemingly not available for Joseph, so he had to take a fight against Fabio Wardley. I mean...
Business.
Yeah.
Business. Does it generate
But
enough
where's
money?
the money? I don't think the money... As much as I think Usyk is the best fighter around, the money's not in the room for Usyk. The money be in the room for Fury. The money be in the room for Joshua.
Yeah.
The only money that's in the room...
Maybe he's waiting for the likes of somebody to create some scenario where AJ puts himself off, Fury puts himself, because they're the only two dance partners where he gets that kind of money he wants. Otherwise, I don't think the money's enough money's in the Parker fight.
No. We said before about Wilder, but I wouldn't want to see that.
But the great fight is Cabello, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the great fight.
Cabello, who's going to want to fight Cabello when he's not really as known? That's what I mean. Unless that's going to be in the Ukraine or near where he fought Dubois in Roslav in Poland, where there's a lot of Ukrainian people living there, then it's not really going to sell, I don't think.
Where are we, before we close the subject off on heavyweights, where are we with Tyson Fury, Johnny? And what he's talked about retiring again. He's talked about, I'm definitely out. We get these mixed messages. We all know there's a distinct possibility he's going to land back in the ring with Anthony Joshua at some point. Are you invested still in wanting to see Tyson Fury? Did we see Tyson Fury vanquished in those two fights? He makes up a story in an alternate universe that he won both of those fights.
I think Tyson Fury will fight again. I think he's just had a rest. He's not quit. I think he's getting itchy feet or whatever it is. Against Anthony Joshua, will it happen? I've just given up. I've given up on even romantic.
There's no trilogy with Usyk, is there?
Yeah, not at all, not at all. I've just given up on the idea of it. Common sense would tell you, Eddie and Frank will need to get in a room. Common sense would tell you, get these two together, because neither of them can afford a loss against anybody else. And the one that's probably more inclined to lose out of the two of them is probably AJ. So it devalues the fight completely. Yeah. So common sense would get these two in the ring together. Don't think about getting a fight, Ray or fight, but get them in together, because after that, that's when the chips will all change.
Time will tell. So we've got a little bit of aggravation potentially between Boxer and Queensberry. We've got Boxer's first outing on the BBC on the 25th of October. And we've got Fabio Wardley versus Joe Parker on that night. Let's have a listen to Frank Warren having a little go at this.
So I'm a bit disappointed that, I think they've done a 4-fight deal with BBC, and the first show that the BBC they give them is to clash with another show. It's madness. I don't understand it. But look, it is what it is. It's up against our show. I mean, the two guys are fighting on our main event. Fabio Wardley is in a real tough fight against Joe Parker. I mean, these are different levels, by the way. And Fabio's beaten obviously Frazer in big style, certainly in the last fight. And I really do like Frazer, but he absolutely poleaxed him in his last fight, or the fight he had with him. And then you look at Joe Parker, who's on a roll and is an interim champion. So it's a big fight. It's a great fight card. And it is what it is. We'll get on with it and do what we got to do. But levels, these are different levels we're talking about. Seriously different levels.
Yeah. I thought you'd fallen out with me there, Frank, when I asked about Ben Shalom and free to air and the threat that
I mean, I
poses.
know it's your favourite subject, Jim, but, come on. Well, one thing about it, all we'll be doing is talking about it 4 times a year now.
Very good last jibe in there from Frank. Couldn't miss there, could he? What do you think of what Frank was saying there, Paul?
I think he's got a point. I think he does have a listen, don't let this be the headline on the VT. Frank Warren should be worried. I think anyone on terrestrial telly will have a big advantage. There's a lot of numbers there, and Channel 5 are getting like 1.5 million viewers for a Friday fight night. On BBC 2, the old school people just flicking through the channels of the terrestrial TV, they're going to sit and watch the boxing. They're going to see a decent night of boxing or a couple of decent fights, maybe. Like the main event is a good fight. I think it's a decent fight. It is levels ahead, Wardley and Parker, and the whole show will be a levels ahead. And I think it's not about the promotions. When it comes to the promotions, obviously Queensberry are miles ahead. But BBC Two will be very appealing to the average fan who likes to just watch a decent heavyweight fight on terrestrial television. I think the numbers will be good. I think the saving grace is that it'll be done and dusted by 10 o'clock, so they'll still get to see Parker and Wardley.
I think it won't touch the sides. I don't think it'll touch the sides because I think in the build-up to the Parker fight, they'll advertise it left, right, and centre wherever they possibly can. Now, you tell me how they're going to push this, unless it's word of mouth, unless you're a boxing fan, how they're going to push this.
Is it behind pay-per-view? Is Wardley Parker behind pay-per-view?
No idea. But how are they going to push this?
Well, that's a differentiator, though, Johnny. Isn't it?
Okay, on BBC Two.
25 quid.
Okay, they're going to push this on BBC Two. Yeah. So how are they going to push it? How are they going to advertise it? How are they going to push traffic towards it?
Digitally, they've got iPlayer. They can bombard it. If you've got BBC, then you know you've got the audience, so you can just drop it in where you want to, when you want to, how you want to. You've got a preordained format to be able to do so.
They advertise sporting events, don't they, on the BBC?
Of course they do.
They do advertise their own.
What do you think of the Boxer deal with the BBC?
I think it sounded great initially, but it's 4 fights.
Yeah.
4 fights for the year. So I think, how are you going to feed your fighters? You've got. I don't know how many fighters has got tied to him. How are you going to feed your stable of fighters on 4 fights a year? 4 shows, 4 of your own shows a year.
Yeah.
So that time will tell on that one.
One would assume, though, that Ben, you obviously know Ben, I know Ben. You'll have seen him change from the promoter that was seeded to take over from Eddie. Sky may have learnt some of the lessons they felt they needed to learn from the experiences with Eddie Hearn and try and use Ben Shalom as the next generation of promoter to be able to do what they wanted to do. Whether that's worked out or not worked out, it's brought a change of direction. Ben is now in a needs-must scenario. And the fact that the BBC isn't going to give him... It'd be interesting to see where the Ben Whitakers of the world will land on the BBC, because that's where the challenge comes along, isn't it? Building up young fighters and creating a framework where they can be built into potential household names that was once done before for the Barry McGuiggans of the world.
You've got to build up an undercard as well. That's
Absolutely.
how the fights come through.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious to see how this pans out. I don't know. So if it's on BBC Two, what will it show? Will it show just a main event?
2 fights, but
2 fights.
It's just going to get to the point where you're right what you're saying. You can't just concentrate on those 2 fights. You've got to have a good undercard. You've got to reward the person buying the ticket to go to the fight. Of course, the actual fans who are there.
Of course.
And unless the undercard's any good and it's just one main event fight.
But the smallest audience is going to be one in the hall. So you do have to make sure that the audience that's watching it from the television point of view, gets the view that you want it to have. I'm going to talk about Frazer's fight in a minute with Jamie TKV. I wanted to get your reaction, Johnny, to Parker versus Wardley. I mean, we had the 2 boys in the studio a couple of weeks ago. They were the epitome of class and well-mannered and well-behaved, and a huge load of respect. As much as I like Fabio Wardley, I was surprised at what was done to him by Justice Hooney. And he got out of jail in that fight. And of course, when you've got an equaliser as powerful as he's got, that's fine. But Joe Parker is a whole different box of tricks in a whole different stage in his career. Do you like this fight, and what do you think the direction of travel is for it?
There's an old saying, sometimes when you've got a fight, you throw them to the wolves. You think, if you're going to survive, you'll get through this. And I think that's this one for Wardley. He's put him in there and thinking, if you're going to do anything, I'm throwing you to the walls.
Do you think it's a no-lose fight for him? Because I said it to Fabio in the studio, which is basically, most of us... Where are you leaning, by the way, on that fight? Where are you leaning towards?
I'm leaning towards Parker.
Right, me too. Most people, and I think you're in the same place, aren't you, Paul? Yeah. Most people will think that Parker's going to win this fight, and most people will look outside going in. If Fabio Wardley goes in and loses this fight, he didn't lose anything by going in there. He took an opportunity, unless he gets hurt in the fight and subsequently his career gets derailed as a result of it. But if he wins it...
It'll catapult him.
It opens up a whole can of fish,
massively. To do such an amazing thing, it'll catapult him. I just think he's been thrown at the deep end now. He was very fortunate in his last fight.
He was.
And now he's thinking, in you go, son. If you can fight, you can fight. I'll bring you back. So it's worth the risk. It's a big risk.
Before I go off and ask you about the Frazer, I'm listening to Frazer in a moment because we've got a piece of VT from Frazer. What did you? I haven't asked you this, but I'm going to ask you again. I'm going to ask you not again, but I'm going to ask you. What did you take away from David Adelaide? Do you think David Adelaide? I'm off on piece there. The producers don't know I'm going to ask this question, but David Adelaide and his fight against Filip Hrgovic, and I've had various conversations with Adam Booth. Adam Booth set him up and wanted to see what he had.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to break any confidences. But for me, I looked at David Adelaide after the fight. He was far too comfortable in the loss, far too relaxed with the fact that he'd got in.
Relieved. Relieved.
Well, he was walking around smiling after the event. Now, David said to me privately, or in the studio when we had a couple of weeks ago, I know I could have done more.
Yeah.
But when it counts is when you do it. Where are you on the Adelaide story?
I just think it's now down to him. It's now down to opportunities that are put in front of him, because the kid's is
selling, are you?
Exactly. And so now he's got to put himself in a position. He's got to go in and be the underdog. He's got to try and take a scalp when he's not expected to get it, because now the opportunity was put in front of him there. So he's got to go in as the opponent, and he's going to try and upset the apple cart.
I mentioned Frazer. Let's have a listen to Frazer talking to myself and Jim White on TalkSport last week.
I'm back. I feel better than ever. I had a nice run out against Tete, but I always want to be in title fights, and thankfully, I'm back fighting for the British title. And like I say, against a good Jamie TKV, one that I thought was pinging David Adelaide until that controversial finish. So I know what he's about. He's a good opponent, and I'm looking forward to the contest. He's in a good gym. He's surrounded by good company. He's got good heavyweights in his stable: Moses Atuma, Fabio Wardley, Anthony-Joshua, and we've seen what he brought to the ring. Last time he was out, I thought he was very impressive against David Adelaide. And to be honest, I thought he was winning the fight. So, and David Adelaide gave a good performance last time against Filip Ergovic. So, well, he competed a little bit. But, yes, I'm taking it very seriously, and I'm really up for this one.
What if you beat Jamie TKV, and you're sure you will, and you become a British heavyweight champion? Is that it? Would that be a good time to say, right, I've got what I want now? Would you be content with that, or would you want more?
You watch your tongue, Jim, mate. There's no content there. Well, I don't know who you think you are. You might speak to some boxers that will be content with that, but absolutely not.
I love those questions from Jim. I'm really wedded to Frazer Clarke because I really like him, right? And obviously we saw what Fabio did to him in that fight. We've seen him come back and beat Ebenezer Tete, and there's a lot of credit in that particular result, albeit that Tete is not at the end of the spectrum that Frazer Clarke's going to launch pad off. Jamie TKV, I mean, the fight against David Adelaide was a stinkfest. Right? I mean, the fight itself doesn't really excite me, but when you look at this fight for Frazer, how do you see this one going, Paul? What's your take on it?
If Frazer's going to have to be aggressive, be offensive, be on the front foot, otherwise it could be another one of them. And I hope it isn't, and I'm not trying to downplay the fight at all. I think it's a good fight. I think it's a pretty relatively even match fight between the two fighters. I think what Frazer was saying there on the VT had a bit of sense in it as well. I think I agree with a lot of what he was saying. I don't think there's anyone I know in boxing that dislikes Frazer Clarke. He's just such a nice lad. He's been around the pro game for a long time. Before he was a pro, on the security. He's so respectful. He's a nice lad, and you do will him to do well. And I think the first Wardley fight, he did okay, but the second one was clear and one-sided, and that's what we don't want to see from Frazer.
No.
And after his second Wardley fight, his fight after that, it was about looking at Frazer.
Yeah.
That's what we were all looking at, not the opponent. We wanted to see what he was like when he got a shot, if he was fragile. So now, this fight against TKV, again, it could be one of those fights that could stink the place out. It could do, but he's got to make sure he steps his game up and shows his class, shows his pedigree, because TKV will really try and put it on him. Yeah. But I've just not seen a gear from TKV to step it up to make me think, you've got Frazer's number. I've just not seen about him.
Well, let's hope it isn't a sneak. Let's hope it's a good fight. And that, with due respect to Jamie, I'm going to pick Frazer, which is the death, because most of the time I get it wrong. But we will see. Okay, my favourite fight of the year, Eubank Jr versus Benn, but we've had the undercard announced. Jack Catterall against Echo Esserman.
Good fight.
Adam Azim versus Zar Abdullaev, and Richard Riakporhe versus Tommy Walsh are the headline, undercard as far as I'm concerned, with all due respect to the other fighters. Initial reaction to those?
Paul? It's not a barnstorm of what we've seen in the past from some of these Riyadh season cards, obviously. But obviously, it might be a bit of a sign of the times in the way a lot of the cards going. It's a really good main event. It doesn't really need a top undercard to sell it. Yeah. And I don't blame them for doing so, because if you're putting top-class fights on the undercard, top-class fights cost a lot of money, obviously. I'd be excited to see Jack Catterall, how he is. I think he's a very, very important stage of his career at the moment.
Changing his trainer from Jamie Moore.
Trainers from Jamie Moore over to Ennis over in the States. Adam Azim, obviously, I think he's a great talent. It's good to see him on a card with the likes of these fighters. Then further down, obviously, then the fights get a little bit. We saw Ishmael Davis out last time in a good fight against Kevin Ajako. Him against Sam Gilly, I think, is a decent fight. I think it's a good matchup. I think that.
But these are big fights, Johnny, aren't they, for Jack Catterall? We've seen Jack Catterall go up to 147, fight Harlem Eubank. It was unsatisfactory ending to the fight because there was a cut involved, so we didn't really get to see from Jack Catterall. We've seen him, operate at a very high level at 140 with Josh Taylor, come up short against Arnold Barbosa, which I thought was unfair because it was one fight too many to get a world title shot. Had to fight Regis Progress, had to fight Jorge Linares, and then that ended up running into Arnold Barbosa on that particular evening. I mean, you've got Jack coming out for a fight against Echo Usman, who's got that great win against Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor retired straight afterwards there, and afterwards it might give you some indication of where Josh was before that fight. You've also got Adam Azim coming back after what seems to be a quite protracted layoff, and that might be some of the contractual stuff with Boxer, I don't know. And then we've got Richard Riakporhe, who I like a lot, but cannot get past the disappointment of not turning up in the fight against Chris Billam-Smith. I'm not suggesting that Chris Billam-Smith didn't make it that way, but Riakporhe went into that fight. He wanted to fight at Selhurst Park. It's where he wanted to fight in the football club that he supports, and didn't really turn up. These are three fighters with three different challenges.
They're storytellers, and I think for Richard Riakporhe, it's just when he got the opportunity and he didn't take it. It's like, now what are you doing? Where are you going? It's like you're just happy to stand and wait and say, this is what I'm going to do next. I just want another warm up. And I think Richard is one of those fighters he's underachieved in his career. I think this guy will look at himself and think, what did I do? Because he's got all the attributes going. That's what I see here in the gym. Jack Catterall, a guy that has never really fully got his props. I think Jack Catterall's a good fighter.
Well, he got taken out from underneath him, didn't he, against Josh Taylor, where he should have been undisputed.
That's what makes, in our game, I hate that sort of stuff because I thought you've changed the course of this young man's life.
Massively.
So for Jack Catterall against Esserman, it's a good fight, but I think Jack will probably be a bit too smart, be a bit too wise, and as long as he doesn't, if you're going to make a commitment in regards to changing your training camp, in such a big commitment, he shows his appetite that he's still got for our game.
But do you think he can win a world title at 147? You look at the various. I mean, you've got Lewis Crocker in there now, haven't you? At 147, you've got Barrios, who was, unimpressive, albeit the Manny Pacquiao rolled back the years, but notwithstanding that, do you think there's a real possibility?
I do think there's a possibility, but I think we're seeing the best version of him gone.
Right.
But I do still think there's a possibility.
What about Adam Azim? I mean, I like Adam, and obviously we've seen a couple of fights in recent years where I think he fought the was it Iranian or Latvian Vanian at Wembley, I think, where we saw some of the learning curve that he's got to go through. Obviously, there was a lot of comparisons between him and Dalton Smith. Yeah. I think that I don't want to see Dalton Smith fighting Adam Azim until there's a world title on offer or a world opportunity for both of them. And Dalton, I think, is going to get his world title shot sooner rather than later, as we know. I mean, what do you think is the direction of travel for Adam? Is he the same prospect that we talked about previously that's going to be at the top table?
Without it, I think Adam's a little bad man. He loves to fight. And the kid, that's all he wants to do is fight. And I know he went away, he got married and everything. I actually worried because I thought, oh my goodness, something's going to take him off the focus of wanting to be that fighter. But all he does is train and fight. The kid is a talent.
Right.
He's an unbelievable talent.
What's your opinion on the Dalton Smith fight, pull out, vacating the title?
Dalton's going to have to go across the past. Yeah.
As I always said, I agree.
He don't care about it, does he?
At the time, Dalton was a better fighter. Yeah. So there's no problem in saying that. That fight is 2 years down the line, I think. And I agree with you. I'd like to see it when it's got a lot of meaning on that fight. But that fight too early for a British title or a European title, it's not the fight that... I think it wouldn't have been the fight that it will be when they're both at the peak.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If I'm honest with you, I think Dalton is a better fighter currently. But I think the longer Dalton leaves it for this fight to happen, it gives a better chance for Adam to be a fully rounded fighter. So he's got to be smart. I'd have snatched that straight off and put him in his place because each fight you leave this.
Oh, I think Dalton would have taken it, wouldn't he? I think the argument was that Adam Azim and Ben Shalom were playing hide and seek with themselves and avoiding it.
I just didn't like the excuses at the time, like oh, it's this type of fight. just tell the truth. Sometimes when fighters are coming through, someone's a couple of years ahead, and it's no problem.
That's easier said than done, though, Paul.
It is.
No, but you can respect that. You can respect that.
I've respected that massively. I've respected that a lot more than some of the stuff I hear.
But that was Ben Shalom's job then, wasn't it? It wasn't Adam Azim's job, was it? It's not Adam Azim's job to say, well, I'm not ready in my career yet. It's someone else's job to say it for him. He's trained
and that's why. But if you want to play playing the big boys league, then you want to make out as though you've got somebody that's worth the weight in gold.
Last week, Johnny, we had Brian Bomac McIntyre in the studio and talking about training Eubank Jr. Have a listen, because a lot of it's very interesting.
Once he gets in the gym, man, he works like he's a world champion. Like he got the title, and somebody's trying to take it from him. So he works hard, and he's quiet about it.
Why has he brought you back? Why are you back with him?
That's a good question. And the only thing I could think of is because probably I'm the best.
Sure.
And we had a great camp, and we had a great fight the last fight that we was together. And
Liam.
Yeah, Liam against Liam. And everything went smooth. During camp, outside the gym, inside the gym, everything went smooth.
What did you think of the first fights?
Well, I will tell you this, man. We tried to make it happen the first fight, but the timing was wrong.
Right. So he wanted you back for that anyway?
He wanted me back for the next couple fights, but the timing was wrong because I was working with Keyshawn Davis. He was getting ready for a world title fight. Other fighters that was in the gym, I had obligations to. So, I hate that I missed out on that. Part of history.
Does that mean you're now with him for long term?
I'm sure I am.
Yeah.
I'm sure I am. We've got a really, really great relationship. I told him the other day, maybe it was yesterday or the day before, I said, man, once you get past this fight and you dominate this fight, they can't deny you fighting for a world title. At 160, I believe he can be a world champion.
At 160?
At 160, I believe he can be a world champion.
What am I, a tramp? I wear the same jacket 2 weeks in a row. It's a blue roll neck, not a black one. This one's black. I think one of the interesting things that came out, or two of the interesting things that came out from Bo McIntyre was A, that he's going to work with him long term, Eubank Jr., and B, he thinks he's going to be a world champion. I've got my doubts about that.
I think Chris has got a world champion's heart and desire.
He does.
But ability to be a world champion at 160.
Which is the weight that he was talking. I got caught up in a conversation thinking he was going to fight at 168 against Saul Alvarez. He was actually talking about fighting at 160.
Yeah, 160. That's the question mark. Because I think Chris deservedly won beat Conor in his last fight. And yes, there's a weight issue. But what I saw from Chris, I saw no more improvement on what we've seen. And so in seeing that, I'm thinking the guys that are out there, you've got to, I don't think that's there. I respect him, and I've got a lot of time for him.
You boys would have both been around up close and personal, specifically you, when Chris fights your brother for the second time round. Bomac's in the corner for that. Did you see any of the changes that he implemented to be able to achieve the outcome against your brother that they clearly did?
Not really, and it just sounds a little bit like sour grapes, but I think anyone could have beaten Liam on that night the way he was, and the things that happened before the fight with his injuries, and it was just a case of he had to fight and that was it. I think Eubank, nothing's really changed from what I've said, what Liam said, what the people around us have said since the first fight, in that Eubank is an accident waiting to happen. Now, you can't be talking about, and this is not me.
So you saw nothing, Paul? I mean, one of the things that we saw with Chris Eubank, because I was very surprised, because what Bomac said to us, and it caught my attention, was that Chris Eubank is very quiet in the gym and listens. And I always thought he was captain of his ship and took no advice from anybody and did what he wanted to do.
He's probably learned his lesson.
And maybe he did, man. But obviously when Roy Jones Jr. was in his corner, we saw Chris Eubank suddenly pick up some Roy Jones-isms, But you're saying that there's nothing. Did you see anything in a Bomac style that was being impressed upon Eubank Jr.?
Long before them fights, John, he was in our gym sparring with us, and the kid never said 5 words. I said that on the show last week. Like that's how he has always been, young Chris. And he probably will pick up things from the coaches that he's working with or the people that he's sparring with. But if you're getting hurt and rocked off Conor Benn, who's a welterweight, with all due respect, in fights of that magnitude at your weight, then I don't see how you're going to go and win a world title against some of these top fellas. And it's not sort of sour grapes or bitterness. It's just, that's my opinion on what I feel. Now, I think Bomac will be a very good fit for him. I think it'll be a good link. And To train Chris, you've got to have his respect. You've got to be able to
But also, by the same
command respect
token,
for
you don't get
his fault.
Bomac for no reason, do you? I mean, is the only reason you get Bomac is because he's a gun for hire, or do you get Bomac because A, he's a gun for hire, but B, he recognises the fact you've got the chops to be able to be there in the first place?
I think Bomac, again, that's his job is to get the best out of his fight. He's not going to say anything else, is he?
Yeah.
He's not going to say this kid's not going to be world champion. If you ask the question, of course he's going to big up his charge. That's what he's got to do. Bomac is a good coach, and Chris will give himself every possible chance that's going. But in reality, you know, personally, I just think the last performance of Chris, I thought you've got nothing left. There's no more improvement on what I'm seeing there. And I know there was a weight issue and all the build up to it. I thought there's no more improvement there.
Does that mean you think do you think Conor Benn will be better in the second fight?
Yes.
Does that mean that you think that by him being better and there's no more left from Chris Eubank, that Conor Benn's able to bridge the gap and get an outcome in his second fight?
Without a doubt.
You do?
I do think there was a gap, though, personally.
So do I.
I think there was a gap.
Yeah, and Conor Benn, I think he learned a lot about himself to think, like, you know what, I could have done this, I could have that. Whereas Chris gave his heart and soul and gave it all. And I thought, you know what,
Is he technically able, though?
Such
Conor, to get into
cojones,
that
but
situation?
then I don't think he's got anything else left. I just don't. He couldn't have done any more. If he could have knocked out Conor in that fight, he would have done. Yeah. He just couldn't get rid of him. And Conor stuck it. So regardless of him being surprised that Conor stuck it out a lot more, he couldn't get rid.
Do you think the 12 rounds at that pace will do him any good?
No.
Or take away?
It'll take because I think now Conor knows I've just got to maintain that pace and make him work for at least 245, 230 around.
But can he? I mean, can he technically? Because Eubank is a technically better fighter than he is.
Yeah, he technically is, but he's in there with a young man he's got the natural speed, the agility.
He's got the explosiveness. He's not.
Do you think the weight issue around the rehydration? Because I keep on
made all the difference.
Do you?
Made all, and that's why if it's in the same contractual position now,
which it is.
It is, isn't it?
Right.
Then we've got a problem.
But what Bomac turned around and said was that weight loss, because I educate me, because Spencer keeps on educating me of the situation. Rehydration is the less important side of things. It's actually how you manage the weight, getting to that particular point where you won't need to rehydrate so much anyway. So if you've cut the weight properly and got to the situation where you're in control of your own destiny. Bomac was saying it's not about losing weight, it's about how you lose it.
Yeah, Bomac was saying he'd be on him with the weight. All Eubank will say is, well, my nutritionist said I've got to do this and he's in charge of the weight.
Yeah.
So it's not... Bomac has got good intentions.
I can get you down to 10 stone. You won't be able to tie your shoelaces.
Yeah.
You don't understand? So I can get you down to whatever weight you want. If you're going to perform in such a dangerous sport, as in boxing, which is so direct, there's no way in a quadrillion years you are going to be able to, you know, if he does it right, he'll get... It's not going to happen. So
does that mean you're picking Ben for this fight?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Does that mean...
and as I said, I've got a lot of respect for both fighters. I think I'm leaning towards Ben for this fight.
So, no, you're not. You're staying in the Eubank corner?
I think the same again.
Yeah,
I think the same. I think and hope it'll be another good fight.
But if Conor were to do that, do you see a trilogy? Because again, there'll be the same clamour for the same outcomes. The money will be in the room. There'll be no world titles for either one of them. They'll be back in the mix again, fighting one another.
Yeah.
Is that what we want?
There was wrong when their dads did it.
But I mean, there was. I mean, I know I'm a mean-spirited, but their dads and them are two different things.
I understand that, and it was. But I think because both lads left both their heart and soul in the ring, that's why the crowd, that's why they got such viewing figures, because they thought, I rate that. So if you're talking about levels of ability, then it's a different kettle of fish, but it's because of how they fought and what they left in the ring that captured the imagination of everybody watching it.
Can I ask you a question?
By all means, if you want a sensible answer, maybe ask someone else.
Will you go to the next one?
I'm not inclined to.
After the first,
I'm not inclined to. I don't believe in nostalgia. I believe in elite, and I don't think either one of them are. I understand. I understand it was a barn burner. I watched it on the Saturday morning, and I understand. I've seen great fights in Witherspoons as well. I like to see top quality performers getting top quality outcomes, and I don't think either one of them are. And I think I have great admiration for Nigel Benn. I grew up adoring Nigel Benn. I have great respect for Eubank Jr. And he is a tricky bugger. And when you have a conversation with him, you don't know whether to have a shit or a haircut half the time. But they're notwithstanding that, they're great company, they're great competitors, and they were great champions. And the fact that these two boys are dining out at their table, to me, it's something about it that kind of doesn't sit right with me. Now, again, I might be wrong. I'm in the minority.
But were you not impressed by the honesty?
But Johnny, but what else could they have given? The one thing they could give him after all the noise, all the hullabaloo, the press tour, all of the.
It's not very often we see that in fights.
I know.
One fight, a great fight.
And maybe I'm unnecessarily cynical, because you're right. Sometimes you pay for it and you don't get it. In this instance, the one thing I thought you'd have to do is, because of your fathers, because of the legacy, because of the nostalgia, you had to deliver everything that you could possibly deliver, whether the quality was one thing or another. So I don't think so, Paul. But I mean, I don't know. I'm actually more motivated to go and watch Fabio Wardley versus Joseph Parker, because I think that's a real fight with a real title opportunity at the end of it, rather than somebody paying a lot of money for someone else's reputation.
But never say never.
It would be remiss of us not to talk about the cruiserweights, given we've got a former cruiserweight world champion in the environment. We've lost Okolie and Riakporhe. I think rightly so, certainly for Okolie to go up to the heavyweights, because I think it's more natural for him. We've got the two biggest names in the division that don't seem to be able to fight one another, in Azula Ramirez and Jai Opetaia, and Badou Jack, who seems to be able to, be a champion in recess until he shuffles off this mortal coil. What do you view of your old division? What do you think of it all?
I think initially when the cruiserweight division came around, you needed a dance partner. Nobody wants to know it was boring. There's nothing there, and so it's no point in being a good fighter in the division where there's nobody else good to fight. I think Jai is the guy that's like saying, come on, let's have some of this. But there's no names, there's no characters, there's no dance partners there for him. That's why he's talking about jumping up to bridgerweight or even fighting at heavyweight.
I know.
Because it's number one, if there's no names there, that means there's no money there. So even though he might unify the titles, it doesn't mean these guys don't want to get in there with him. Badou Jack, I'm like, what are you doing with this guy here? Why is he not being stripped? Who's he fighting or when's he fighting? Ramirez, they're for the taking. Yeah. So I think for Jai, I feel frustrated for him because he's an unbelievable talent, a really good talent.
And he might land in the heavyweights at a certain time when another young pretender's coming to the front. Anyway, before we get into that, let's listen to Jai Opetaia talking about it himself.
Once I do what I got to do against Chris Smith, I feel like I just won't be denied. They have to give me the shot. Everyone always talks about, he wasn't ready, he's too early, he's not good enough. But Bill Smith, I respect, so I've been told there's a budget, he can have the whole thing. There's a $1 million budget, right? A $1 million budget to be on an undercard of Eubank and Benn between me and Chris Smith. And they offered at 50-50, right? So he said, I'm not fighting Jai unless I get a meal. Well, take the meal. Yeah.
Take the meal. That Jai first time rounds. We got it. We got that on the first bounce. We got that on the first bounce. Yeah. All right.
And these heavyweights they're always going to be there. This unification opportunity to call myself undisputed will never. Once I got the heavyweight, it's
that's what you want.
It's gone.
And I might
once I tick that box as an undisputed cruiserweight champion,
right?
Then I can live my life and go, buff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't want to look back and go,
there was another one. Jai, we're running out. What we have here is a dump button, and we've exhausted the number of dumps we've got.
Yeah, not subtle points Jai was making there. He's intent upon unifying this division, and intent, and also curiously seemed to be zeroed in on Chris Smith. And I like Chris, and I want Chris to do really, really well. But to me, that ship has sailed, and I think it was always a ship that was going to sail if Jai Opetaia got in the ring with Chris. I think Chris did wonderful to beat Lawrence. I went to that fight, saw you down there in Bournemouth, went to this fight against Masterneck, saw him against Riakporhe, and thought in the first round against Zudo Ramirez that, the game's afoot here. Yeah. And then the next 11 rounds, we perhaps saw some levels. Do you think it's commendable for Jai to stay in the division, become an undisputed, whilst time moves on in other places?
I think he might regret it later on in his career. It depends how long he stays there. Johnny's just mentioned, obviously, he's the expert on the cruiserweight. It's a tough division, and there's not many people in. I've literally just been looking through the top 20. Like Sergey Kovalev's number 13, Mike Perez is number 7. It's like it's the top 20 heavyweights in Britain is probably a stronger division than the whole cruiserweight at the moment. But obviously, he wants to be undisputed champion. Who wouldn't? I liked what he said, and I didn't like what he said because over the money, obviously, I'll fight him for free. But if you kiss Smith, you're going to fight Jai Opetaia for 500 grand. Yeah. You know, it's
but that's
like,
the room. That's unfortunately
that's
that's the
what
size
the
of the
budget
fight,
is,
isn't it?
They're going to avoid him.
Exactly.
They'll avoid him like the plague. They'll avoid him like the plague. Your Ramirez, your Bandit, they'll avoid him. They think, I don't need him. He'll step out. You know, then we can play with each other. But and I think, unfortunately, he's going to have to make a tough, hard decision. Think, right, I'm going to step out of this. Always give myself the option to step back in it again. Maybe that.
It's a long time building up to heavyweight as well, and as we saw with Usyk, he took a couple of bed-in fights. Didn't he?
I mean, you called Usyk's move up, right, back in the day, right? And we've seen cruiserweights jump up previously. We've seen David Haye jump up. We saw famously Evander Holyfield jump up, and we know that Evander Holyfield went back in the day from getting paid 250 grand a fight to fighting at heavyweights and getting paid 3 or 4 million. So we know the economic scales of it. When you look at Jai Opetaia and it's difficult because I really like Jai. When you look at Jai, you know he means business and you know he's the best in class in his weight class. But in his weight class, he's fought people that are way below his level. The only one he's fought that's been at his level was Breedis, and Breedis made it difficult for him, even more so in the second fight. Broke his jaw in the first, didn't he? And so when you look at the fight, he's fought Jordan Thompson and he's fought Alex Zorro and people of that nature. It's not really tested him, has it, in terms of the levels?
But then you look at the heavyweights. He's probably the top 5, maybe top 6 that are dangerous.
So do you think he translates in the heavyweights?
Without a doubt.
But do you not think it's a matter of timing? Because we've got the old guard departing now, haven't we? Usyk is going to leave shortly. Fury and Joshua, without any disrespect intended to the boys, their better days are behind them, right? Daniel Dubois, well, we're going to see if he comes back, and you've got emotions about where views about what Daniel Dubois when it gets put on top for him and how deep he'll go. But Moses Atoma in 18 months' time is going to be ready.
What about Moses Atoma against Jai Opetaia?
Today, I would take that fight because I think Jai Opetaia is so clever.
Yeah.
And he'll confront Moses with something he's never confronted
So Jai's
before.
looking at that landscape thinking...
So that's my point. So shouldn't he be going up now?
Yeah, and that without a doubt. But I wouldn't hang about for these boys, the boys in the cruiserweight, because they don't want to do it. There's no dough there, and they just do not... If he's saying to Chris Williams-Smith, here, take the mill, take it, and they're still not taking it, you're flogging a dead horse.
Does he translate into heavyweights, though, do you think?
I think he does.
Wins a world title?
I think he does. I think he's got a good boxing brain. And most of the time, when I was cruiserweight, you'd spar with lots of heavyweights, and we're just big units. It was the top 5 you stayed away from. And I think he'll manhandle a lot of the heavyweights that are out there because he's sharp enough and smart enough. You remember, he was a sparring partner for Tyson Fury at one point, and Tyson Fury's a proper tall unit, and he took the job to go out there to spar with him. So he knows, he's comfortable in there with the big boys, so he can make the transition.
When you look at those names I just mentioned, do you have optimism in your heart for Jai that he can be up there with them? I mean, I know we talk about winning a world title and potentially that making itself available to him, but when you look, I don't want to be mean-spirited to David, but I don't think he falls into the same camp as Evander Holyfield and Oleksandr Usyk, not just because of the rivalry, but because of the fighter itself.
Shall I tell you why I rate Opetaia? Is because he's got a boxing brain.
Yeah.
When Usyk stepped up to heavyweight, he was the cleverest. He had he was the smartest out of the heavyweights that were there. I remember when he was boxing, Usyk was boxing AJ, and Dylan White and Derek, they were saying, no, you know, AJ will blitz him. I'm thinking, you're disrespecting this boy because he's a cruiserweight. You're just talking about his weight. You're not talking about his boxing ability. And I think Jai brings the same again. He has the boxing IQ.
There was a line from Russ Amber on Usyk, and he was saying, why wait? Why take your chances fighting against him? Just go for the main man. Just go for AJ now and try and make it happen. And then inevitably it did happen, and he did beat him. His attitude was always, you're good enough. Just, why wait to see if you're big enough or you can just go for the main man straight away.
Can I ask you a question at left field, Paul? I mean, I don't know if you heard the other day, and I'll give you an opportunity to deal with this one because I half dealt with it on your behalf, but you can carry it probably better than me. Tundi was talking about Anthony Yarde, and there's no doubt that Anthony Yarde takes the fights, right? So you've got to give Anthony Yarde all the props. I've said he's a gallant loser. His best performances have come when he's been very good in a fight that he's lost. And no one can deny that when he fought Kovalev when he was younger, it was inexperience that did for him there. Beterbiev, I just think, was on a different level, but Anthony doesn't duck these fights. But the observation was made about Callum and potentially ducking the fight against Benavidez. So that's my first question of you and the Smith family. And the second one is there any possibility that, say, given the cruiserweight division is a little pedestrian at times, Is there any possibility that Callum could step into the cruisers and go and pick a world title up there? Was it something that he'd be interested in doing?
I'll answer the latter first, and that would definitely be a possibility. If Badou Jack was available, I'm sure Callum would have jumped at that fight because it's a good fight and it's a WBC title. They know each other from the super middleweight and light heavyweight days. Obviously, Callum has the frame to go up to cruiserweight for someone like him. And whether it be up a tire or something, I'm not sure. You know, I don't know. He's 6'3.5". Callum is a big lad.
Yeah.
But the Badou Jack fight is a fight that he was absolutely fancy. I imagine speaking for him. With regards to Tunde and Yard, I agree with everything what you're saying on Yard, and it's difficult to say without sounding like I'm criticising Anthony Yard because I don't, and I don't want to. I think he's a good fighter. I like him. I respect him. With Tunde, Callum Smith turned the fight down. Someone else turned the fight. We got the first offer and accepted it. You're a terrible manager because you've took the first offer that's been offered to you and it was less than what Boaty and Callum got for fighting each other. So you've took the worst offer possible for your fighter to go in to that fight when there was a lot more in the pot. There was a lot
I don't think that's
more
the
money.
Inference though, is it?
That's what I mean. But rather than just saying how it is, he's telling me he's avoiding him, he's avoiding him. Callum posted a post on Twitter straight away after saying, I was offered a fight off PBC for less money that I got against Boaty. I never received an offer off Turki Al-Sheikh. So there was no offer to Callum from Turki Al-Sheikh or from a Saudi show to fight Benavidez. The first and one only offer he got was from PBC Direct, and he made more in the Boaty fight. So it's not about the money, but the money wasn't anywhere near what was in the pot. And the money in the pot for that fight for Callum and Benavidez is a lot more than he was being offered, which Anthony Yard or Tunde have snapped their hands off at the first offer for.
Right, okay, fellas, that's it for episode 140. Thanks for both of your time.
Pleasure.
And we'll see you guys next week. We'll be talking about light heavies next week.